we've already known. As long as you don't read the media and do your own analysis, you already know a lot of what I'm telling you. So you probably already know that Obama is as key to figuring out what went on in terms of the illegal and illicit targeting of Donald Trump as any other official. And along those lines, Charles Grassley and I think Lindsey Graham released an email, as I call it, the "We're Not Crooks" email written by Susan Rice, Obama's corrupt national security advisor, at 12:15 on the day President Trump was inaugurated. I think it was written even after he was sworn in as president. And she wrote this "We're Not Crooks" email that is obviously cover for misconduct by the president, James Comey, Joe Biden, and others. And the letter, and I'm going to read you in large part the email because I think it's important that we get it on the record because you're not going to hear about this from the major media. Susan Rice wrote this to herself, an email to herself about a meeting that took place on January 5th. She wrote it 2 weeks later. So that's a weird way to memorialize a meeting, don't you think? Well, you'll see why it's such a scam of an email. On January 5th, following a briefing by IC leadership, intelligence community leadership, on Russia hacking during the 2016 presidential election, let me put my glasses on so I can look at it from a distance. President Obama had a brief follow-on conversation with FBI Director Jim Comey and Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. Remember Sally Yates? In the Oval Office. Vice President Biden and I were also present. President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by intelligence and law enforcement communities, quote, by the book. The president stressed he's not asking about initiating or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. He reiterated that our law enforcement team needs to proceed as it normally would, by the book. Do you believe that? I would read that paragraph to mean to document the exact opposite. That President Obama was manipulating the process with his cronies, Jim Comey, Sally Yates, Joe Biden, and Susan Rice, as it relates to Russia involvement in our elections, and more specifically, the targeting of President Trump. Because, from a national security perspective, the email goes on, however, President Obama said he wants to be sure that as we engage with the incoming team, we are mindful to ascertain if there are any reason that we cannot share information fully as it relates to Russia. The president asked Comey to inform him if anything changes in the next few weeks that should affect how we share classified information with the incoming team. Comey said he would. Why would Rice write that email 2.5 weeks later, but then the cover, there you know what? Further confirmation that President Obama needs to be investigated about the dossier. Because you can bet, because he was briefed on all things Russia, just as this email admits, that he was briefed on the dossier and its origins. Everyone else in the agency knew what its origins were, who were senior. Why wouldn't Obama have been briefed? His Democratic National Committee paid for it. Why wouldn't he have known? And then he's telling his people not to tell the incoming president intelligence information he has a right to. Obviously because he hated Trump. The whole superstructure of the Russia collusion investigation is so compromised. If it doesn't collapse on its own weight of corruption, then someone needs to step in and bring it down and stop it. When you have Susan Rice, again, as I said, the corrupt Susan Rice, she was lying about unmasking, said it wasn't happening, and then admitted that it was happening. Remember that? She was the Benghazi, putting out the Benghazi lies on behalf of Hillary Clinton and President Obama. blaming it on an internet video when she knew otherwise. Judicial Watch exposed that, not Congress, not the media. Judicial Watch exposed that the White House knew it was a lie, yet they told Susan Rice to go out and say otherwise. And then Judicial Watch exposed that the unmasking materials that are indirectly part of this Russia, well, directly, I think, part of this Russia collusion scandal are over at the Obama Presidential Library. Because we asked about Susan Rice unmasking material to the National Security Council, and they said, go ask the Presidential Library of Barack Obama. He has it all now. So now we've got Susan Rice in a CYA memo implicating the president, then President of the United States, in Watergate manipulation of intelligence gathering and targeting of his successor. So I hope Congress is bringing in all these people to talk about Russia collusion. Steve Bannon was in there last week. Mueller's been interviewing people. Is Congress going to interview President Obama, or at least ask him questions? Joe Biden? I think you know the answer to that. But we're out there asking questions, and that's why we're in court suing time and time again to get access to the information. We want the underlying FISA applications material. These are the warrants used or obtained as a result of using this Clinton DNC dossier. We're asking for the unmasking records. We have this new lawsuit, as I talked to you about, but we also have other lawsuits about that as well.
A government watchdog group wants to know more about a senior State Department advisor who made frequent and unusual requests to unmask the identities of specific Americans. One America's John Hines has more from Washington.
The watchdog group Judicial Watch has filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the U.S. State Department for unmasking and other records tied to the Obama administration's UN ambassador, Samantha Powers, relating to the ongoing investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election.
She's a UN ambassador. She probably had security clearance and had access to classified information and was a consumer of classified information. There's zero chance she had any need to know about the identities of Americans caught up in foreign surveillance by our intelligence apparatus. I don't buy that even one of the unmaskings was legitimate, let alone the 200 plus that have been reported.
So it appears Powers had little need to know Americans' identities, says Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, who also wonders why the UN ambassador had access to the underlying intelligence information in the first place.
I question why she was even looking at the underlying intelligence that resulted in the unmasking request. And my suspicion is it was all hands on deck by the Obama administration trying to find out what the Trump campaign was up to. And one of the ways they were doing that was going through this backdoor method of looking at foreign surveillance by their intelligence community and pulling out information there.
Meanwhile, Powers has reportedly claimed in congressional testimony that someone requested the unmaskings in her name, that she didn't actually personally make the requests. Yet Fitton believes this explanation is even more disturbing.
Now, the defense has been thrown out there that maybe her name was used to unmask individuals and she didn't actually make the request directly. Well, if that's the case, that not only was a violation of the rules, but may have been a crime. So there's got to be a serious investigation here, and it speaks volumes that it's Judicial Watch that's suing to get the basic information.
Fitton added that it is ironic and troubling that it is this State Department under Rex Tillerson, an appointee of President Trump, that is throwing up obstacles to information transparency. John Hines, One America News, Washington.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call today.
We need extreme transparency on this Russia issue. We should have a transparency initiative administration-wide to declassify and release this information to the American people so they can find out about the government corruption, evidently, that was behind the targeting of Donald Trump. Government corruption that has been unmatched in recent history by all accounts. And right now the deep state is controlling the transparency here, or the secrecy and the stonewalling. And I'd recommend the White House intervene directly to release this, as they did with the Nunes memo. If the deep state had its way, we would never know about the Nunes memo and the big lies behind the dossier and the corruption of the FISA court process. And they have a lot to hide. Everything's collapsing around them. That's the big news this week. It began with the Nunes memo. It's been slowly but surely, but it culminated in many ways with the Nunes memo, and it's just gotten worse and worse. The Russia collusion story is collapsing. There was no Trump-Russia collusion. The only evidence for it was spurious allegations created by Clinton campaign vendors, Fusion GPS, and this foreign national spy Steele. That's the only basis for it. Don't be distracted by anything else, and it's collapsing. So the news about this Democratic memo coming out, which is the counter to the Nunes memo that the Democrats created after they failed to obstruct the release of the information, so they thought, well, maybe we should put our spin on it. That's going to be terrible for the Democrats, because it's going to remind us that it was their party that funded the dossier that was behind the Trump spying, brought to the Trump warrant, targeting Carter Page. But there are other things that the dossier was used for to target the Trump people with. So I'm very interested to see this Democratic memo that talks about a Democratic-funded dossier paid for with Democratic funds, as I said, the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee, used by a Democratic administration to go after the opposition to the Democratic candidate. I'm very interested to know in that memo what's in it. I'm interested to see the defense. As I said last week, we found there was another dossier, this one created by the Kerry State Department, targeting Donald Trump. They gathered information and sent it over to one of their buddies in the United States Senate, classified information on Russia. They vacuumed it up the last days of the administration to target Trump. And now in the paper today, I think, there's a Obama State Department official who admits that he was talking to not only Steele, but Sidney Blumenthal, Clinton Foundation guy, Clinton henchman, hatchet man, whatever you want to call him, regular email correspondent with Hillary Clinton that Judicial Watch uncovered in all the Clinton emails. Constant. Blumenthal sent Hillary Clinton a dossier, it looks like every week. It's no surprise he was helping out on this dossier effort targeting President Trump. I keep on calling him by his Twitter handle, Real Donald Trump. We have a FOIA for the State Department on the Steele communications, the dossier communications. So we'll see what that uncovers. All of that's collapsing. And what's being exposed is now the President Obama's maybe direct involvement in all of this. Now, one of the interesting things, and this is the dishonest liberal media, they've kept President Obama out of this. You would have thought the FBI and Justice Department had nothing to do with the Obama administration in 2016. Well, actually, it was run by his appointees. James Comey is an Obama appointee. Loretta Lynch is an Obama appointee. The head of the CIA, Obama appointee. The head of the NSA, Obama appointee. But President Obama is never mentioned. He's raising money for Hillary Clinton, going out and campaigning for her in a way that no president has done in 100 years. Again, no president has done what Obama did for Hillary Clinton in terms of personal political support and campaign support. There's been nothing comparable done in 100 years. But we're not allowed to ask questions about what he knew and when about the dossier. Now we have good basis to ask these questions, even more because of text messages released by Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, who has one of the oversight committees in the Senate, where Strzok and Page, the anti-Trump FBI agents at the center of both the Clinton email and Russia investigations, are saying they're, I think it's Strzok who writes, I need to prepare, I'm paraphrasing, the texts are out there for you to review. I'm preparing talking points for Comey's briefing with President Obama. He wants to know everything. Now, Johnson interpreted the text as wanting to know everything about the Clinton investigation. So the defenders, I just love the defenders because they make it worse for those they're defending, say, no, that was probably about the Russia investigation. Oh, well, isn't that interesting? So President Obama wanted to know everything there was to know about the Russia investigation. Did that include the Russia dossier, funded with his party money? The unmasking of Trump associates? All the other abuses that were taking place? And what's even more interesting, the president is talking to James Comey about an intelligence investigation and maybe even a criminal investigation concerning Russia. This is why, for the left that is focused so much and invested so much in abusing the rule of law to target President Trump, the whole thing is collapsing. That's why you hear about figures like Papadopoulos and Carter Page and people who obviously had nothing to do with Russia collusion as defined by the left with President Trump. Why is Mueller still pursuing this investigation? And why isn't he been asked about what he knew and when about the dossier? So we're in court asking for the records. We're being stonewalled in our request for the records. And I would encourage those responsible officials, whether they be in the White House, the FBI, the CIA, NSA, you name it, Justice Department especially, to start erring on the side of transparency. Because the cover-up is helping the perps in this Russia-Obamagate scandal. Another terrible agency when it comes to transparency, and it's a more recent development because the agency went south as a result of the Clinton email scandal, is the State Department. Now, we're taking on some big topics at the State Department. Obviously, we've got the Clinton email scandal, that Judicial Watch FOIA litigation against the State Department uncovered. It wasn't Congress, it wasn't the media that uncovered the Clinton email scandal, it was Judicial Watch. It was our legal team, our investigators, that uncovered the Clinton email scandal. Now, with pay-to-play also being uncovered as a result of Judicial Watch's litigation, the Clinton pay-to-play, the State Department was a mess. And it's continued to be a mess because of the Russia dossier revelations, or the Russia scandal revelations that have been uncovered since then, largely, and also in part due to Judicial Watch's legal pressure. For instance, we just found a week or two ago and disclosed that there was another Russia dossier the State Department had that they leaked to Congress to target Donald Trump. And it turns out the State Department was also playing patty cake with the Fusion GPS gang and Sidney Blumenthal, another Clinton crony, and laundered intel, or what they pretended to be intelligence, into State Department official files and back into the FBI. So the State Department continued to be abused even after Hillary Clinton left. And one of the abuses that people are concerned about are the unmaskings. Now, what are unmaskings? You may hear this phrase. An unmasking, as best as I'm able to understand it, is a request from an official for the identity of an American picked up in foreign intelligence gathering. So let's say they're listening in on the British Prime Minister and the German Chancellor talking about an American. and someone, let's say the president says, oh, what is the name of this American? Because it's important for me to know the context. And that American's name is unmasked. Now, as you might imagine, there are great sensitivities about doing so, because when you're eavesdropping abroad, there are no warrants required. You don't need any permission from a court to spy on foreign nationals abroad. So when Americans get caught up in that spying, it really ought to be, their identities only really need to be produced on a need-to-know basis. And if the intelligence gatherers thought it was important in the context of the intelligence, they would let those who are consumers of the intelligence know the identity necessarily, I would think. But under the Obama administration, it looked like in their efforts to get Trump, they were unmasking at a rate that was well beyond any reasonable requests. So, according to Fox News, Samantha Powers, who was Obama's ambassador to the United Nations, worked at the State Department, had 260 persons unmasked over her last year at the State Department. What on earth would she have done that for? I have no doubt it was to get Trump. No doubt. Now, why did they need to know the identities of 260 persons? Because I'm convinced they were using this foreign intelligence, they knew it was out there, and someone figured out, oh, well, we can just start Googling or doing the search, the equivalent of searching Google searches and intelligence gathering data to find out indirectly what the Trump team was up to. I guarantee you, not for legitimate reasons, but to target Hillary Clinton's presidential candidate opposition and help her. I have little doubt. And of course, this is first unmasked, to use the turn of phrase, by Devin Nunes, the House Intelligence Chairman, a Republican, who bravely came out and exposed this. We still don't have the details on it. So Judicial Watch has asked about specifically the Samantha Powers unmasking. We've gotten the stonewall from this State Department, not the Obama State Department, but the Trump State Department run by Rex Tillerson, who's told us basically to go jump in a lake. They refused to respond to our request about what Samantha Powers was doing to unmask all these people the last year of the Obama administration. We also asked about our communications about the DNC hacking. Remember, the whole theory is that the Russians hacked the DNC servers. I don't necessarily buy that. But we want to know if Powers was involved in figuring out what went on there, because it looks like they were involved in everything else on the Russia collusion dossier laundering operation targeting Trump.
As reports of a second Clinton-funded dossier have emerged, some in Washington are wondering who may have seen the alleged document. One America's John Hines has that story from Washington. The discovery of a second Trump-Russia dossier, this one apparently prepared by former journalist and political activist Cody Shearer and shared with British agent Christopher Steele, has raised many questions, one of which being, did former President Obama see the dossier and act on its information?
So the Obama State Department official is meeting with Sidney Blumenthal, who's passing information from another Clinton crony, Cody Shearer, to the State Department official. He takes that information, gives it to Clinton campaign operative Mr. Steele, who then gives it to the FBI. So you had the Clinton campaign and Clinton world laundering this Russia information in so many ways it makes one's head spin.
And one way they may have laundered the dossier is through the CIA, so that it eventually may have ended up in the hands of President Obama, according to published reports, says Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton.
So now there's a new report showing that the CIA director under Barack Obama, John Brennan, took the dossier created by the Clinton campaign and attached it to the president's intelligence briefings that he gets every day. So he attached it to one of these briefings, and the dossier is given to President Obama.
Attached to President Obama's intelligence briefings, says Fitton, who also, as the president of a prominent government watchdog group, feels it may be important for the American people to know more about the possible connection between the former president and the dossier.
I think President Obama needs to be questioned about what he knew and what he did with the Clinton DNC dossier. Did he know about its origins? How was it used? And was it the basis for targeting the Trump team generally? And did he give any directions to his agencies and officials in the White House in terms of spying on Trump and targeting Trump and making these allegations about collusion between Trump and Russia as a result of this Clinton campaign document that was given to him evidently by the CIA in another abuse of power?
Important questions indeed, which several congressional investigatory committees may soon begin asking, especially in light of emails from Obama UN Ambassador Susan Rice, which refer to discussions of Trump-Russia collusion. John Hines, One America News, Washington.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call today.
We had asked the records from the National Security Council, which is the White House arm that provides national security support to the President of the United States. And we asked for these records under the Freedom of Information Act. And this is what we asked for. I guess it was back in March. We asked for records about any actual or suspected effort by the Russian government to influence the 2016 presidential election, Russia collusion, the alleged hacking of computer systems of the DNC, or the Clinton presidential campaign, any actual or suspected communication between any member of the presidential campaign of President Trump, his transition, and any Russians. And then the identities of U.S. citizens associated with the Trump presidential campaign or transition team were identified pursuant to intelligence collection activities. We wanted to know also about Susan Rice's involvement in this material, and then of course any unmaskings that Susan Rice asked for from the intelligence community. What was happening is Susan Rice, according to the reports, and I think her own admission by now, was asking the intelligence agencies to declassify or unmask, not declassify, but unmask the names of Americans caught up in intelligence gathering operations from abroad. You have to have good reason to do that, and many suspect she didn't have good reason to do that. So we asked the National Security Council for these records, and National Security Council, there's an argument whether they're covered by FOIA, but we always ask, and they sent us a letter back last month. And this is what the letter says. Documents from the Obama administration have been transferred to the Barack Obama Presidential Library. You may send your request to the Obama Library. However, you should be aware that under the Presidential Records Act, presidential records remain closed to the public for 5 years after an administration has left office. And then helpfully, I don't know if you can see the letter, this is the letter we received, they gave us the address, phone number, and email address of the Presidential Library of Barack Obama. Now, I know many saying, oh, well, he doesn't have a library. Well, he does. It's now a temporary facility, but it's a library, and certainly the archivist, National Archives, keeps records on his behalf. So let's boil this all down. So we asked for these key Obama spying documents, and we were told, oh, they're at the archives. They're not at the White House. They're not at the National Security Council. Now, I'm sure that's a surprise to the Trump White House, and I'm sure it's a surprise to members of Congress who are looking at this. It may or may not be a surprise to the deep state of the Justice Department, but certainly now they know where to look. And the problem is that under FOIA, we can't even begin to ask for these documents, although we're looking to see if there are ways that we can, until after 5 years have passed. But the president, these documents aren't necessarily squirreled away and never to be seen again. But the president, because the president under the law, their restricted access is what they call it, But under this restricted access, you can, as President Trump can, get these records. Makes sense. He's the head of the government. He's the government records. And Congress, if they need the records, can also get the records. They're also subject to subpoena. So a civil litigant who has a good reason to get the records can get them, and obviously prosecutors can try to get them as well. But this, to me, looks like a bureaucratic shell game. I'd like to know when these records were sent, who sent them. Was it done during the Obama administration? Was it done before or after this request? Was it done during the Trump administration? Who knew what and when? And this is a public service we're performing because now we know where there may be some key records about this scandal. I know the Intelligence Committee reportedly sent out subpoenas about unmaskings. They're getting stonewalled by the deep state, the Trump administration. The Trump White House doesn't really seem to have control of what the agencies are doing in terms of responding to FOIA requests or subpoenas even. And so as a result, there's stonewalling going on.
Well, thanks everyone for sticking around. As you know, Tom at Judicial Watch his organization has doggedly pursued Hillary Clinton and exposed her email scandal, drove home to the American public her untrustworthiness throughout the entirety of the campaign season. You guys did the work, basically, that the mainstream media was unwilling to do,
Right.
what Congress was unwilling to do,
Right.
and the Obama administration was unwilling to look into. So, based on that, you still have several lawsuits pending regarding the Obama administration, corruption in that, as well as regarding Hillary Clinton. Now that Donald Trump is in the White House, how is your organization's focus going to change, and how do you see wrapping up a lot of those suits that you still have out there pending?
Well, there's a lot there to unwrap, but obviously we changed history with the Clinton email scandal. We uncovered it.
Yeah, you did.
It wasn't Congress, it wasn't the media, and of course it was the Obama administration that was implicated in helping her cover it up. And scandal matters to the American people. Fighting corruption matters, and certainly there was no indictment of Hillary Clinton yet. But if there was a grand jury sitting on election day, they made their views known on whether Clinton did anything wrong on her email scandal. And we're still in the middle of the email scandal. We're still trying to get all the emails, and frankly, President Trump's administration should consider reopening or pursuing any ongoing criminal investigations related to Hillary Clinton.
So what do you still have ongoing? I know the FBI has recovered some of the emails that she deleted.
We still don't have all of her emails. We still don't have all the pay-for-play emails. And the Obama administration has slow-walked the release of that information. They've been fighting us tooth and nail. The Trump administration has been in office a minute, and so they aren't up to speed as to what needs to be released more quickly and to stop the obstruction. In many ways, we're waiting for the Trump administration still to take power in that regard to get the transparency we need, not only from the State Department, from the Justice Department, which was absolutely ruined by President Obama.
Well, and we know a lot of Obama's staff, there's a lot of Obama holdovers that are still within the Trump administration. A lot of the emails that you exposed and a lot of the reporting coming out, this year has been about this shadow government
Right.
That's basically going on, that's trying to undermine Trump's agenda from the get-go. What can you say to that, and what can Trump do to kind of root out the shadow government that you started to expose?
Well, the Obama administration is still there in many ways, and the administration hasn't appointed all the officials they need to appoint to the various agencies. And I say from Judicial Watch's perspective, we're obviously going to be looking at what President Trump is up to. You know, we need to hold the president accountable to the rule of law, and I think he expects that. If he doesn't, he's in for a surprise. But then on top of that, there's this alt government in place, a government staffed by recent appointees or hires of President Obama. And I often joke there are lots of Democrats in the bureaucracy, but on the other hand, there are also a lot of Republicans who think they know better than President Trump and are willing to thwart the rule of law. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having honest dissent and disagreements. But when you're hired as a federal official, you're supposed to do what the president says within the law. And no one's asking him to do anything illegal, but they're organizing actively against him and subverting the rule of law. And we see elements of this with the targeting of General Flynn. General Flynn did nothing wrong in my view. He was wrong. And let's be clear. You had President Obama and his team wiretap President Trump after he won the election and his team. On what basis? So it's not about Russia connections. It's about illegal wiretapping of the Trump organization and his transition staff by an out-of-control Justice Department and Obama administration. And then they're leaking the results of that classified wiretaps in a way that harms the national security and tries to destroy their political enemies. It's the IRS handle, except at the national security level.
And so what has your organization has requested from the NSA?
Oh, we're on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to wait for Congress to investigate it. We're not going to wait for the Justice Department to investigate it. We've asked under the Freedom of Information Act last month for some of these records, and we could be suing within days just to get access to this information.
And then as soon as he gets access, you guys get access, and we get the truth uncovered. I want to kind of shift topics, and voter fraud has been a topic of conversation.
Right.
And if you listen to the mainstream media, they would say it doesn't exist, that there is no such thing, and that we should all just move on, and this is one of Trump's terrible, dreams. What say you about voter fraud? Does it exist? How can it be uncovered? Is it a problem?
It exists, and it needs to be investigated. The left would have you believe we have 43 million aliens present in the United States, both lawful and unlawfully present, and none of them vote. Now, President Trump would suggest maybe 3 to 5 million of them vote, or people vote illegally. Well, obviously the number is somewhere in between. It's probably about 1 million or so. But why not ask the question? Under the Obama administration, they opposed voter ID. They opposed the idea of even asking someone whether they were a citizen or making sure they were a citizen before they registered to vote. Why on earth would you be opposed to that other than you wanting to be able to steal elections when necessary? And we've been fighting for voter integrity at Judicial Watch. We've battled the Obama administration. We sued states to clean up the rolls. But the president's idea about a federal investigation into voter fraud will be the most significant civil rights investigation in a generation. We're on the side of civil rights. We're on the side of the civil rights of American voters who potentially are having their votes stolen from them by the thousands, if not millions, by illegal votes. He should be pursuing this, and it's easy to figure out whether there's voter fraud. And obviously that's why the left is screaming, because they're afraid their jig is up.
And we don't know what we don't know, and so to say that there's no such thing because we haven't investigated or exposed it, I think is a nonsensical argument. But President Trump announced that next week he's going to unveil a new immigration plan, a new travel order. What do you think of the old order? What needs to be done to improve the new order, and do you like his immigration policy thus far?
Only in Washington is it revolutionary to finally enforce the rule of law. He's not doing anything new. He's just enforcing the law as written. People who are here illegally, if you're a criminal who's violent, you're more likely to be deported. But if we run into you and you're here illegally, you could also be deported because you're not supposed to be here. That's a quite sensible approach, and that's what the law is, and it should be no surprise. And the idea that it's controversial that these terrorist-infected states go through more scrutiny before we allow citizens from those states to enter the United States, why is that controversial? Look, the left has this massive infrastructure that's going to oppose any enforcement of our immigration laws. And frankly, there are more than a few Republicans who don't like that either. So this is only revolutionary because Washington doesn't want what the American people want. And immigration is controversial in Washington, D.C. till Trump because the politicians in Washington wanted to do something the American people didn't want to do, which was grant amnesty. And evidently that ain't going to happen under this president. But in the meantime, we're going to do our work. We're suing San Francisco over their sanctuary policy. So you citizens, you can't rest on your laurels, either through Judicial Watch or on your own. You have to be watchdogs over the government. It isn't over just because President Trump is president.
And what can they do? Just, we have zero time left, but, you know, as active, engaged conservatives that want to expose the truth, where can they go to your website?
Well, they can go to our website, obviously, at judicialwatch.org, but hold your local officials to account and ask the Congress when are they going to finally start doing what they're supposed to do in terms of government oversight, because we're happy to do the work, but frankly, it's outrageous we're the only ones doing it. But we're happy to do it for you, and it shows you we can change history if you're focused on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thanks, Tom.
Hey, thank you, Kelly.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside Judicial Watch. I'm your host, Jerry Dunleavy, and today we will be discussing the now infamous so-called Trump dossier, its role in obtaining FISA warrants against members of the Trump team, the involvement of Fusion GPS, the Clinton campaign, the Obama Justice Department, as well as new revelations about the author of the Trump dossier, Christopher Steele. Most importantly, we're going to be discussing Judicial Watch's role in attempting to get to the truth behind the dossier and the FISA applications. And so joining me today is attorney Jim Peterson, the man behind Judicial Watch's lawsuits to get the truth about the dossier and the FISA applications. So thank you very much for joining me today, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, so really quick, Jim, you've been with Judicial Watch for a number of years. And I've got to imagine that these cases have got to be up there in ranking some of the more interesting ones. Talk with me a little bit about your experience here with Judicial Watch, and then we'll launch into sort of a discussion about the dossier and FISA and all of that.
Sure. I've been with Judicial Watch, from the second Bush administration through the Obama administration. And now the new administration, and we've witnessed some really remarkable things from our experience going to the Supreme Court in cases, from our battles on immigration. We've seen government corruption on all levels, but this issue, presents questions of corruption that involve that they're widespread and some of the most troubling, because it involves not just corruption of the President's office potentially, but also the Justice Department, the FBI, as well as a very special secret court. I mean, the corruption runs through all of these, and getting to the bottom of this is critical to our country.
Yeah, so this is a big deal. This is very unique, and we're kind of in uncharted waters here when it comes to dealing with these issues. So, so let's take a step back. Let's talk about the so-called Trump dossier. Let's talk about the role that it played in sort of the genesis of a lot of this.